The stop-motion children's film Coraline was released in 2009, directed by Henry Selick, who also directed James and the Giant Peach, as well as the very successful The Nightmare Before Christmas. The film was based on Neil Gaiman's novel released in 2002, and the author has said that out of all of his film-to-book adaptations, Coraline was his favourite. The fact doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I still remember going to see Coraline as a young girl, and the film sparked a passion for film and animation. We follow Coraline, voiced by Dakota Fanning, as she moves into her new home, the Pink Palace, with her inattentive parents. While exploring, she discovers a small mysterious door that opens to nothing but a brick wall. In her boredom, she explores the outside world when running into the landlord's grandson, Wybie, voiced by Robert Bailey Jr., and his adopted cat, who later leaves a package on her porch, a doll that resembles Coraline exactly, believing it to be hers.
Oh, some kid left this on the front porch.
Hey, Jonesy, look what I found in Grandma's trunk. Look familiar? White.
Huh. A little me? That's weird.
What's his name, anyway?
Whitey. And I'm way too old for dolls.
That night, when she falls asleep, she is awoken to a mouse, which she falls to the little door again, only this time the door opens to a whole enchanted world where everything is perfect but not as it seems. The other mother, voiced by Terry Hatcher, creates a constant level of unease. Even when we are first introduced to her, the audience and even the character of Coraline seems to find everything a little too perfect. As this ideal image comes more and more undone, so does the costume the other mother, also known as the beldam, wears, being morphed into a spider-like creature made up of an incomplete skeleton and needles. Her character is obsessed with everything being under her control, and as we begin to see her lose her grip on her world, she seems to descend into a kind of desperation, leading to one of the most haunting scenes after Coraline escapes, where the beldam starts screaming and banging on the door for Coraline to not leave her and how she will die without her. Terry Hatcher's voice acting is impeccable, as we truly feel the other mother's fear, and watching our villain get so terrified makes us as a viewer feel a level of discomfort that is hard to create. Coraline was a revolutionary film in two aspects. One being it was the first horror-like film for children, which even left some adults feeling uneasy. It was the third stop-motion film to receive a PG rating after The Corpse Bride and The Nightmare Before Christmas. I remember loving this film in my childhood because it provided me with this thrill that I wasn't used to experiencing from the media I consumed. It played on the familiar, the mundane settings of the apartments, and the familiar and comforting images of your family being distorted and manipulated into the evil and eerie. Even when the beldam is turning against Coraline in the beetle room scene, she acts like a mother, counting to 3 before throwing Coraline in the dungeon, as if she was grounding her or putting her on the naughty step for misbehaving.
I'll give you to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3! Ow! What are you doing? Ow, that hurts!
They play further with the familiar when Coraline's parents are taken by the beldam. As children, we see our parents as our safety, and that nothing like this could happen to them because they are adults. When children are faced with the idea of their parents vanishing and having to be the one to save them, it completely shifts the dynamic they are used to and creates a whole unique experience. The film is also revolutionary for how it progressed stop-motion animation. Until 2016, after the release of Kubo and the Two Strings, Coraline was the longest stop-motion animation feature film. Both films were created by Laika Studios, who created other films such as The Box Trolls and Paranorman. It was the first full stop-motion feature to use 3D printed faces that were created on a computer then printed. They were connected to the puppet's eyes and left a visible line that was later digitally removed frame by frame.
Crazy? You're the jerkwad that gave me the doll!
With a budget of $60 million, the film had 130 sets across 52 stages, the most ever developed for stop-motion animation. partly due to the fact that every set had to have two versions, one for the real world and one for the other world.
If you add the Ghost Eye Garden and the Fantastic Garden together, it only accounts for about 5 minutes of the film, but that's 20 shots in the Fantastic Garden and about 50 shots in the Ghost Eye Garden. To do that many shots, we have to have 15 sets, so that means each part of the garden has been duplicated 2 or 3 times, some parts maybe 6 times.
The film took over 500 people and 4 years to create, 2 years dedicated to pre-production, which would have been dedicated to set building, character development, and building the puppets. The beauty in stop-motion animation is how the animators see everyday objects and how to use them in their artwork and create such wonder. For example, animators use cut-up popcorn painted pink to create a forest of cherry blossoms, taking 800 hours to paint every piece. Oliver Jones, one of the animation riggers on the film, details about another example using a pet's toy.
We went down to the local supermarket store, and one of the things that we found was a dog toy. And we just sat around and played for quite a long time. Suddenly all these flowers started to come to mind that we could use it for, to create petals to do this.
The aesthetics in the film are integral to the story of Coraline, as there is a need for a strong binary opposition between the real world and the other world, whilst also keeping a cohesive style across the board. Selick came across Japanese illustrator Tadahiro Yusugi whilst the film was in development. The illustrator's style was strongly influenced by American 1950s advertisement illustration.
Anyway, there was just something elegant and pure and simple about his work that I responded to. What I love about him is that he goes to this very bold place. He takes a risk. He doesn't sort of creep up towards something interesting. He goes to the place immediately or goes beyond. Early on, when we were figuring out the palette of color, shapes of trees and shrubs, rocks, we were able to refer to a lot of the work he's already done.
Tadahiro's influence was huge. I mean, it was pretty much his illustrations that Henry fell in love with, and all of our illustrators have been asked to work off of that same look that Tadahiro has developed.
They use this style as the baseline to keep that cohesive nature while making a strong differentiation in color palette.
What I love about him is that he goes to this very bold place. Tadahiro in particular was a big influencer of that sort of very delicate color of the real world. We didn't want it to be dead. We just wanted to feel like it was maybe muted, and it's late winter. There might be life there. You can just see hints of it. Some of his otherworld color was pretty wild, a combination he did of purples and yellows, a lot of red in the purple, and we were able to capture that very exactly.
To allow a strong distinguishability, the strong and vibrant colours used in the other world appeal to the child audience and add to the idealistic and dreamlike nature, compared to the dull grey and blue palette in the real world, which first of all indicates realism, but is also used to create a mundane environment. The film uses strong symbolism everywhere, sometimes to convey something in a less graphic way. An example being when the other YB saves Coraline and Coraline returns to save her parents. The other mother has hung up the clothes of YB for Coraline to find out in the open. It's a haunting sight knowing that she destroyed one of her own creations for disobeying her. It reminds us that she is willing to kill and destroy anything in her way. Coraline is one of the best animated features to have been created, with a level of detail and intricacy that is rarely achieved in a children's animated feature. Although originally created for children, the beauty and excitement created by the film is still admired and adored by the adult audiences that grew up with it. The film spoke to my childlike curiosity, and Coraline as a character connected with me strongly. Because she wasn't overly girly, she was just a curious child who wanted to explore her world, and that to me is the pure core of the story.